Hello? Hello? All right. Maybe I also can't talk about governance and then the talk is done right now. Today I'm going to be talking about, BOS Core and the WPS system that we've built over the last 8 months on BOS. To give you a quick introduction, I'm going to use less than the 15 minutes. The idea with BOS was it was created in a different way than EOS was created. And so there were already 100 million BOS tokens that were earmarked in the original distribution. So those 100 million BOS tokens were already there for a WPS system. And they're still there. There's been about 5 million or so that have been allocated. The idea was that we wanted to create something that created checks and balances within the current system, because in EOS, we knew that there were issues with the systems that had been proposed in the past, and so we wanted to leverage some of the information that we got with the proposal that was not accepted, and try to create something on a separate chain where there was still some value, some liquidity, that could be used as a proof of concept in order to bring to EOS mainnet in the future. And we had that possibility with BOS because BOS is completely differently structured. It is more centralized, and so things can occur much faster. One of the things, for example, 3-second lib. And the idea that we wanted to do as well, we wanted to ensure that the funds that could be earmarked, or the funds that were earmarked, 100 million, could not only be used for BOS, but for any EOS IO chain. So that if you had a project that you wanted to develop on EOS IO, the mainnet, for example, but that it would benefit the whole ecosystem, go for it. You can apply for funds. The system is live, by the way. It's been live for quite some time. And the original idea was to try and attract talent and to try and attract more businesses, more developers, so that they could potentially have some funding through different formats that were not readily available. Like we know in both BOS and EOS, the inflation that's being allocated goes to only certain stakeholders, and those are the block producers. But what about the people that aren't block producers, that are not interested in being block producers? Shouldn't they also have perhaps a chance to be able to create something and get funded for that? And we know that those systems work very well in other chains, but we did not have that in our ecosystem, not at this level. And so BOS launched the WPS system back in June, and over the course of the last couple of months, we've seen what works, what doesn't work, and overall, there's still a lot of work to do, but we're in our 4th iteration. And it's pretty simple, really. You just submit the proposal, a proposal name, the amount that you're looking for, a breakdown of what you're going to do, who you are, and where, if you win the grant, you will be receiving the funds. Pretty simple. There's a UI for it. What we wanted to ensure at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, was that there's certain checks and balances within the system so that it wasn't necessarily only relying on the block producers. Also, we knew that the block producers are most likely not going to be looking at this, and they're not going to be monitoring this, so it cannot just be them. And so there are 3 entities that were created. One is the BOS executive team, which I'm the chairperson of, and earlier Igor is also a member. There's a couple of other people here that are BOS executive team members. That's a group of appointed individuals for now that are responsible for this BOS Ecosystem Program, the WPS portion of things, that are responsible for monitoring and looking at those proposals and kind of keeping an update onto that. What's different with BOS, not only is there the 100 million BOS earmarked funds from the very beginning in the distribution, but there's also a separate 1% of inflation that is broken down into 80% and 20%, so 0.2 and 0.8 of that 1%. That mirrors the 1% going to the block producers. And those 2 funds, fairly simple, 0.2% goes towards projects that are encouraging and increasing and making updates to the governance of BOS, and 0.8% goes towards projects that are helping the development of BOS. But to create such a system, we need to create different layers. We need to create somewhat of a DAO, a different mechanism, so that there would be different actors and everybody would be held accountable to one another. So we have the block producers, we have the token holders, we've got auditors, and we've got the BOS executive team. In a nutshell, when somebody proposes a proposal and is seeking funds, the token holders are the ones that go out and vote as to whether or not they agree with that proposal. We learned in EOS that that threshold could not be static, because we don't know how many token holders are currently participating, how many tokens are actually active in the ecosystem. So with BOS, that became a percentage. So instead of having a static threshold, that threshold changes based on how many tokens are actually participating in block producer elections, so that we know that it's possible to achieve it because there are some people, clearly, that are using their tokens to stake into the network. That threshold right now is 40%, which is about, sure, good luck. That threshold is roughly, is 40%, which is roughly 16 million tokens right now. The auditors needed to be incentivized if they wanted to do, if it came that the proposal gets passed, however, the work does not get completed. So 10 days before the contract expiry, where the proposal is supposed to be finished, the BOS executive team reviews the proposal, reviews the work that's been done, and gives a yay or nay. If the yay is passed, everything goes as smooth, the funds are released. If a nay is given, then there's auditors that step in. Auditors review the code or review the event or review whatever material that's relevant for that proposal, and also give an opinion, yay or nay. The final decision rests on the block producers who were elected originally through token holders. If the decision that they make is a yay, then the funds are released, but only 90%, because the auditors that sided with the yay get that share of 10%. If it's a nay, the auditors that also recommended that the funds should not be released get that 10%, so that they're incentivized to actually do good work. I'm gonna skip through this. What have we learned? The process is inefficient. It's too slow. You're seeking funds, and right now, by the time you get your funds, sometimes it takes 4 months, 5 months. And so you're actually doing the work beforehand, but you're only getting paid in the future. There's volatility with the token, and you're investing quite a bit beforehand. That was pretty obvious right from the beginning. There's issue of liquidity as well. Over time, there's only so much liquidity because it's a sidechain. There are efficiencies. It's clearly not that efficient, and it's centralized. There's a BOS executive team that was appointed. But all of this, we kind of knew, and instead of building a system that was perfect from day one, we released a system out in the wild, funds can be released, and then we reiterate in the wild, reiterate in the wild, reiterate in the wild. So a couple of things that we're working on, and then I'm done. Micro grants. What if you want a certain amount of money, but you don't want to wait the 4 months because it's relatively small? So we're working on a proposal right now to be able to allow micro grants so that you can ask up to roughly $2,000 that just gets passed or does not get passed, but once a month, so very, very quickly. Another thing that we're working on is for the BOS elections, the BOS executive team elections, we did not want to mirror the governance system that was in EOS or in BOS for the block producers, where it's 1 token, 30 vote. And so we researched governance and election methods, and we found the BORDA system, BORDA voting system. And what that does, simply, it's a ranked system where you have to vote for the amount of people that is required. So in BOS executive team's case, there's 25 BOS executive team members. You will have to vote for 25 people, but you rank them. And instead of, I don't have a pointer, but if you look at the blue line on this graph, that's how it currently works with 1 token, 30 votes. Each person that you vote for gets exactly the same amount of vote weight. But with the BORDA improved voting mechanism, each one of your votes slightly goes down so that your 30th choice doesn't have the same vote weight as your first choice. Concretely, what does that mean? If you had 20 million tokens, your first choice would have 20 million vote weight, and your final choice would have 800,000. So it's a linear decrease. What that does in practice and in theory is that it reduces the centralization in certain organizations, because we see that in EOS, you get to have cartels. This slowly, it still accepts that those people have more power, however, it tones it down a little bit and it creates a longer tail. And the last thing that we wanted to do is do everything on chain. Just like in EOS right now, the referendum tally is not on-chain. And in BOS, it's currently also not on-chain. So one of the technical challenges that we're working on is bringing everything on-chain. And I believe that that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yves.